the latest issue about G20 is the invitation card which says Bharat and not India. Now that is the latest thing, that is G20 going to reposition India as Bharat and not India as India?
No, India, that is Bharat. It is there in the constitution. Please, I would invite everybody to read it.
So it's not something which is new, it is something which existed in the constitution, and so you didn't do, it's not a new roll of dice.
No, I think when you say Bharat, in a sense a meaning and a understanding and a connotation that comes with it, and that is reflected in our constitution as well.
I'll begin with asking you about the G20 having this 20 largest economies, and so will the New Delhi meeting reposition finance infrastructure frameworks to stimulate global growth, or like in the past is it going to be for the growth of just a few?
Well, first of all, Smita, good to talk to you, and as you can see, this is like the home stretch. Everything is getting ready, the negotiators are negotiating, the people who are trying to get the arrangements done are working at it. So it's really at this moment very, very focused time for us. But still, I think it's important people have a sense of what is going on. My reading right now of the G20 is that there are a whole lot of issues. Some are longer term structural, meaning that they've been discussed before, including at earlier G20s. Some are more emergent. They are issues of the last year, maybe the last 2-3 years, which have again come to head, whose stress impact on countries is very high. So you're going to get really a mix of issues that the world is looking at. And a lot of this, the burden is on the global south, on developing countries. One very important message for us is focus on the global south. But there is a larger context. The context is of a very turbulent global environment. The impact of the COVID, impact of the Ukraine conflict, issues like debt which have carried on for some time, and by the way, climate disruptions which are today affecting the economy as well.
I'll come to global south because you spoke about that post BRICS also.
Sure.
I'll come on that, but first I'd like to ask about whether the fact that President Putin and President Xi are not going to be present at the New Delhi meet, has that cast a shadow on the summit?
Not really. I mean, look, I think at different points of time in G20, there have been some presidents or prime ministers who, for whatever reason, have chosen not to come themselves. But that country and that country's position is obviously reflected by whoever is the representative on that occasion. So you had some occasions where you had a president or two, sometimes three, who have not themselves come. But I do think my sense from talking to the ministers certainly, and I know the Sherpas are in touch with each other. They are right now trying to hammer out the final document. I think everybody is coming with a great deal of seriousness. I mean,
will it have an impact on the outcome of the meet?
I would put it this way, that the issues are there. These are not issues that are this morning being taken up. I mean, there's a whole gestation period of 8-9 months where at different levels ministers or officials have tried to progress an issue. So this is like a culmination. These are really about 16-18 processes which are all coming together to be stitched up together to produce a summit.
So Russia and China are not really miffed with India, and is that the reason?
No. I don't think it has anything to do with India. I mean, I think whatever decision they make, I mean, they would know best, but I would not at all see it the way you would suggest.
And it's not going to have an impact on the declaration itself is a complicated procedure to arrive at a consensus to have a declaration. So are we moving towards it? Are the countries moving towards that? And
well, we are negotiating right now. As I said, the negotiation is not the clock did not start ticking yesterday. The clock has been ticking for some time. So typically what happens is there's a ministerial meeting. Then the ministerial meeting produces outcomes. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I chaired the development ministers meeting. Okay. So when we did the development ministers meeting, there was an agreed, all 20 countries agreed that there should be an action plan to speed up the sustainable development goals achievement. All 20 countries agreed that we should have high principles for environmentally friendly lifestyle. So now if these have been already approved, either they get attached or some part of it in some summary form comes into the document. So everyone, the labor, the education, the finance is a very, very important track. I mean,
correct.
That's a very crucial track because in a way that's where the whole thing began, the G20 exercise began. So every track feeds in outcomes. These are, some of them have multiple meetings like finance, some of them have a single meeting. So these outcomes are melded together and they produce a composite document. In addition, there are things which may be discussed among the Sherpas, or the leaders may also discuss some things among themselves.
These meetings have been going on since the beginning of this year.
Right.
But is there a consensus building, and what will India see as the host? What will India see as a win-win situation?
Well, I don't think it's just a matter of India seeing something. Today, the expectations of the world are very high in terms of what the G20 is able to produce, and produce in terms of meeting the challenges of the world. So if you were to go to Africa, we go to Latin America, go to parts of Asia, go to the Caribbean, go to the Pacific, everybody is today saying, okay, I have a certain set of issues. I have a debt problem, I have a trade problem, I have a health access problem, I have a green development resourcing problem. So what will the G20 do for me? So the world is waiting. So the world is waiting, or today I see it more for India as a responsibility, that we have the responsibility today in a very difficult world. It is difficult in terms of the COVID impact, difficult in terms of the conflict impact, in terms of the climate impact, in terms of debt. That's one part of it. But it's also difficult politically. There is a very sharp north-south divide. There's an even sharper east-west polarization. So how do you bring people together? How do you find common ground? How do you make everybody understand that we all have a bigger responsibility? And therefore, please, can we kind of get our act together here and do what is right by the world?
As a former diplomat and now as an external affairs minister, I guess that's right up your alley to find common ground.
Well, everybody has worked and is working on it. There's every minister, we have about 15 ministerial tracks. Every minister has put in the best. The Sherpa and his team have worked and are working very hard. So it's a collective effort.
Sure. Right. You've just come back from BRICS. Yeah. You're heading for the ASEAN Summit, East Asia
this
Summit.
Evening.
Yeah. So that's the East Asia Summit, and then is the G20. It's a packed schedule. You spoke about Global South. You spoke about the divide between the East and West, between the North and South, and trying to find common ground. Do these countries see India as a voice? You said represent the Global South. Do these countries who are participating in these fora, do they see India as a credible voice within the fora?
The Global South countries? Yes. I would certainly hope so for this reason. There have been G20 summits before. No other G20 presidency made an effort to get together the developing countries who are not on the table and say, please come sit with us, tell us what are your concerns, and we will distill those concerns and place it before the G20. That's a very unique exercise. Nobody has done it before. So if we have taken the trouble, and we meaning here Prime Minister Modi himself, if 125 countries have been consulted, feel today, yes, what we told India, India has promised us that they will put that issue on the table. I think they have a lot of expectation of India. And as far as the rest of the G20 is concerned, they know that, look, we have always in G20, outside the G20, India has a reputation of being a very constructive player, someone who bridges divides, who kind of somewhere helps to fix problems. So there's a lot of goodwill that we have, and again, I stress to you, I am confident that every one of the G20 coming to Delhi will understand the responsibility that they bear, will understand today that the other 180 countries of the world are looking to them to set directions, and that they cannot afford to fail them.